Think of this as kind of a designer's diary for the online Hangouts Wraith Chronicle. The first question I'm expecting people to wonder about is character creation. Why did I make it so that the characters had to be members of a tank crew? Why did I introduce that complication, forcing them to have to be from a limited number of nationalities compared to the number of soldiers who were involved in the Korean War? And why did I make it so they had to be a member of a foreign group of soldiers? Why did I put that limitation on it? Well, part of it is that I do think that limitations inspire creativity, which is commonly known. But more importantly, the tank. It really was the tank. I'm giving the initial characters a tank. A tank is a very powerful, very iconic item. It's a symbol of safety, security, and power. And really, in order to get involved in anything that will benefit their characters from a developmental standpoint in the way that Wraith frames it, they'll have to leave it behind. That's what the game is all about. The next question I'm expecting people to ask is a prelude. Why did you choose to start such a short run, such a limited run story with a prelude? Well, the answer to that is usually we don't see them, and I'm not even sure that many World of Darkness groups out there even run them. I mean, I don't hear them discussed or talked about. I hear them mentioned in passing, but actually running a prelude, actually getting a chance to try the character out before you have to engage very deeply in the system. I think it's one thing to make mistakes or experiment or have your perceptions about the system changed when you're playing it for a long time. It's quite another thing to find that you have misunderstood things so completely about how your character was actually going to play out that you're prevented from actually playing the game that you intended. And in an emotional game like Wraith, the character is the thing, and what happens to the character is more at the forefront of what's happening than pretty much any other game I can think of. So running the prelude, having these 2 characters or 3 characters, however many play in the first session, having them have an opportunity to see what really is the character, I think is too valuable a chance to pass up. Now, a prelude will put the characters in a situation or several situations where they have to make decisions, engage, run away, trust, don't trust, that kind of thing, so that their personality is revealed, and might give them the opportunity to see some aspects of the setting in character for the first time. And again, that's completely worth it to me. Now, if I were watching a session like this, especially with something like Wraith, I think the question I would have is how well the players know each other. Like, is this a group that's playing with strangers, or is it a group that knows each other and is comfortable with each other? So where you can go with Wraith can take some pretty interesting directions. Now, in this case, I'm gaming with strangers, and the way that it was done was I put a notice out saying that, for all of you game masters and content producers in the YouTube RPG brigade that put Wraith at the top of your list of games that you wanted to play, contact me and I'll run it. And quite a few did contact me, but once we started looking at schedules, it didn't leave too many seats open. And with the exception of, the very notable Noel Inquisitor, Sebastian Allard, I didn't really know anybody beyond, their, a few YouTube videos that they've put out. And so, it was a chance to get to know some people in a pretty intense, or a game that promises to be quite intense. So, gaming with strangers and this kind of format of calling for volunteers means that One of the things that you're not going to see about how I normally, set up groups is the interview process, where I would determine if, this potential player is suited to the game. This was more of an opportunity to put stuff out there. You've always wanted to try the game. I've run the game. I've played the game. I've got experience with the system of game. I'll run it for you, and you can make up your own mind. It's not something where we're building a player relationship to game together for an extended period. This is a bit of a risk. I mean, you never know who you're going to get. Now, based on the preliminary responses, everybody seems to be normal. And as we go through the character generation process, I'll be asking things of people, like to identify and stick to a schedule of when they're free, and to produce their character within certain parameters, and so on. So some people will weed themselves out by virtue of not being willing or not being able at the right time to complete those requests, and that will be that'll be a shame. But so we'll find as we go through the various sessions who actually gets to play, and I'm not going to worry about it. But normally, if I were operating through Meetup, or if I met a bunch of people at work or whatever, I would definitely be feeling them out, getting to know what kind of gamer they are, what kind of expectations they have, before I ever made a pitch about what kind of game I might want to run for the people who are available, or feeling the group out to see who among them really should be the ones playing together, or who should be recruited. That sort of thing. So this Wraith experiment is more of a demo game where anybody could be sitting down next to you, and that's how I'm treating it. I'm not going to worry or exert control over who sits down. We'll leave that up to scheduling and fate, which is a very appropriate way to handle things for Wraith. The next question I expect viewers to ask is this how you normally run your games? And the answer really is no, because this is a limited run. It has a very distinct number of sessions, and it's operating in narrow windows of time because of the time differences between where I live and pretty much everybody else lives. So, of the numbers of people who stepped up asking to get into the game, we've been able to divide it into 3 groups as it stands now, and it really won't be convenient times for any of the players. And I'm just simply not available during any times which even approach convenience for them. Because of that limitation, I have to take a heavier hand, not only in setting up how the story will be started, but I also have to keep an eye on the clock to know when to wind up the sessions, and I have to keep an eye on the emergent threads of the story, and when a pattern has started to emerge, then I have to weave that into something. And this is definitely not my preference, but there is an art to it that I appreciate, and I will enjoy doing it for this game. And Wraith, because of its elements, because of the split between the psyche and the shadow, and because of just the richness of the setting, lends itself to this kind of play very well. It encourages you to take on the style of play, to be operating on more than 1 or 2 levels beyond in character and out of character. But there are various levels of in character, and there are levels of secrets that exist inside the same character, all of which encourages this kind of more narratively themed play. So no, this is not my normal approach to play. I imagine you will see my normal approach to description and scene setting, but you will not be seeing how I handle the developing story or the way in which mechanics are engaged, and that sort of thing. Maybe if some sort of social encounter, some social duel or combat were to occur, you might see something approaching how that's handled. But yeah, so is this how I normally run my game? No, it's normally how I would do a Wraith one-shot or possibly a Call of Cthulhu one-shot. So I think the last question that people might have for this sort of design diary would be, how long do I, as the game master, expect the sessions to run? Well, it's hard to say. We only have, based on the schedules, the way the schedules interact globally, we have about a 3-hour window for play maximum. And while my preference is for longer sessions, I find that with adult schedules, and especially with time zones being involved, having anything more than 4 hours is pure luxury. And I've been finding that the average that I've been getting in my Hangouts-based RuneQuest game is about 3 hours. So I don't feel too bad that we only have 3 hours. Now for the Prelude session, session number 1, depending on how many players get it together to get their characters ready and turn out to be not affected by life in any way, and so can show up for that first session, the Prelude has every possibility of going for about 2 hours. It's unlikely to go longer than that because a Prelude really is just an opportunity for characters to be demonstrated or be explored. I found in my years of play that the initial spark of inspiration when I've created a character usually remains true. But the way that that character expresses themselves evolves pretty quickly once I don them as a character, once play starts. And over the first few sessions, there'll be some mutability in exactly how they express themselves, which I will either interpret as different moods or really as finding the voice of that character. Sometimes it comes really quickly. Sometimes it takes a few sessions. But what the Prelude is intended to do is, dump you in the deep end. Here's your character concept. Here are some pretty emotional past events. You don't have to worry about surviving them so much because, ostensibly your character already has. It's a prelude. So you can focus on how you want to react to them. And that's a crucible for character refinement that I really appreciate. So the kind of situations that we want to put these wraiths through in the beginning really is the question of you're dead. And there are all of these things, all of these emotions, all of these ties, these fetters, these chains, they're all pulling at you in different directions. And how are you going to respond to this? Who are you? What is the core of who you are? And so I'm intending to run it as intensely as I can. That also is going to depend on what kind of feedback I get from the players once things start. If people are dispassionate, if people react to it just on a verbal level, it'll be challenging to keep it moving. It'll be tiring for me. I'll have to pour more and more energy through the barrier of the screens which separate us. It's not like how contagious it can be around a physical table, where emotion feeds on emotion, where if someone's willing to take a step into an emotional posture, others may be more willing to follow. Or you can shut the game down more easily and say, yeah, well, whatever, go play board games. But yeah, if there's a full complement of 3 players, then the Prelude part will be 2 hours easy. We may have another hour of actual, full-on Wraith character play after that. If there's only 2, I'm unlikely to run it if there's only 1. So if there's 2 or 3 players, we can expect 1.5 to 2 hour Prelude. And then depending on how much time it takes us to generate the shadows, which we're going to do at the beginning of play, that may take up our 3 hour window. So It's a very long way of saying I expect 90 minutes to 2 hours of play for this first session. For the subsequent sessions, there's likely to be a new player character added each time. So again, there's likely to be staging. So if we're watching as an observer, you can expect in the neighborhood of 2 hour clips. But we have been together and chatting for 3 hours or a little bit more for each one. That's likely what you're going to see. And during those staging grounds, the 1 hour or 30-minute lead-ins, we would be discussing how the characters work mechanically, how the character is going to be introduced, reviewing what the shadows can and can't do, and who will be playing, the shadow of which character and that sort of thing. Just setting up the kind of normal stuff you do before play. And that's it for the design diary as far as I can tell. If you have any questions about what you see in the actual play or in any of the actual plays to come, please feel free to leave a comment and I'll address it either by attaching video to the actual play itself or in this way.